everyone, I'm Tara. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about clean eating. So I've been eating clean, which we'll talk more about what that means in a minute, but I've been eating clean for a while now, and it really does make such a difference in how I feel. And I know I talk a lot on here about exercise, moving your body, about keeping your mind healthy, and we don't talk too much about food, but working to eat healthier is really such an important part of living a healthier and holistic lifestyle. So I think it's important that we still talk about it. So we're making another eating video today, and I'm going to be giving you guys 7 different tips to help you to start to eat cleaner. The tips are going to be beginner friendly, so they're easy ways that you could start to eat healthier and eat a cleaner diet. So let's get into the video. So let's start off by just helping you understand what clean eating even means. So it could be a broad term, but if we're keeping it really basic, all it means is eating foods as close to their natural state as possible. So a really simple example is you would choose, say, a piece of fresh fruit over a piece of dried fruit, right? So the fresh fruit had undergone less processing. When you eat clean, the idea is to start to eliminate heavily processed foods. And you're not going to eliminate all processed foods, as that would pretty much be impossible. So even like olive oil goes through some processing. Even like a fresh bag of like cashews or something goes through some processing. When you cook foods, that's technically processing the food. So it's not about eliminating all processed foods, right? It's just about eliminating these heavily processed items. And the reason we want to eliminate these heavily processed foods is for 2 reasons. So one, really heavy processing of a food is going to start to diminish its nutritional value. And 2, usually these foods that are really heavily processed are going to have a lot of additives in them that really are not ideal for our health. So that's really the basis of clean eating, which sounds simple, right? But sometimes it's not so easy to know where to go with this. So with the 7 tips I'm going to give you, there'll be actionable steps that you can take, and that will help you understand how you could start to eat cleaner. One last thing before we get into the tips. For those of you who don't know me at all, I'm a doctor of physical therapy, so I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist, but I do have some education in nutrition from being in physical therapy school, and I did my undergraduate degree in exercise science. So I did learn about nutrition in my undergrad, and that's really where I started eating healthier, was when I was learning these things in my undergraduate education. So I'm not a dietitian, but I've been eating pretty clean for a long time now. So I'm sharing with you these tips and experiences to just help you start your clean eating journey. Or if you're already eating pretty healthy, maybe you'll learn something new that you didn't already know that you could change in your diet. So yeah, also if you're not subscribed, maybe take a moment to subscribe, and let's get into our 7 tips. So tip number 1 is to read your ingredients. If you're gonna take one tip from this list, this is the one that I would listen to. It's so important to know what you're putting into your body, right? You really want to know what's in the food you're eating, so it's so important to start to read ingredients. And I know this can seem time consuming at first, but I promise you, once you start to know what foods have ingredients in them that you want to buy, then it's pretty easy and you'll know what your staples are, so it's not going to be something that's time consuming in the long run. So just remember that, because I know that obviously reading ingredients on every item in the store that you're buying can be time consuming, but it's just for a short while. You'd be surprised that some products that you would think would be healthy, right, or there wouldn't be anything bad in them, do have additive ingredients. So for this video, I actually researched an item. So I was thinking about buying bread at the store, which bread seems like, okay, it's bread, right? Like, what could be in it? Some wheat, maybe some salt, some yeast, right? Like, what's going to be in your bread? But a lot of times breads do have these added ingredients. So I decided to look up Wonder Bread to see what was in it. If you eat healthy, most of us probably know Wonder Bread isn't the best option to eat. So I was reading the ingredients list in this bread, and one of the ingredients in their list is, I'm just going to put it up on the screen because 1, I can't remember it off the top of my head, and 2, I probably can't really say it. So this ingredient here, and honestly I have no idea what that is, but it doesn't sound like something I would want to put in my body. So reading ingredients will start to maybe make you question what some things are. Maybe you just choose not to eat it. Maybe you look it up just to learn more information. But instead of just blindly putting these foods into our body, it's really important to know what's in them. So some simple ingredients that I personally avoid, there's probably a lot that I avoid, but these would be like common ones. One is partially hydrogenated oils, which I don't think they're really putting them in food anymore, which is a good thing, but that was one that I was always on the lookout for. Two, I always look for high fructose corn syrup. If that's in it, I won't eat that product. And the last thing is like any color additives in things. I try not to buy, like when it says like yellow number 5, red number 40. I don't know if those are the right numbers, but you know what I mean. When it says that in the list, usually I try to avoid that too. But read your ingredients, start to educate yourself, and be aware of what you are consuming and putting into your body. Tip number 2 is to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. So ideally, if you could choose to eat fruits and vegetables that are fresh, that's gonna be better than frozen or canned. So that's like a really simple kind of swap that you can do. If you're not really eating any fruits and vegetables, then maybe the first step is to start to incorporate some of these into your diet. According to Harvard Health, ideally you want to have 2 servings of fruit plus 3 servings of vegetables per day, so totaling 5 servings of fruits and vegetables. So maybe trying to incorporate more of these foods. And it's not that you can't ever eat anything frozen or out of a can, it's just trying to increase the frequency of fresh produce. It's not like I never eat anything that's frozen. I use like frozen peas as like an add-in a lot. Like that's something that I'll use typically frozen or that I'll have on hand. So with all these tips, it's not like you have to be perfect and it's like, oh, I'm never gonna eat anything frozen or canned. No, that's not the point. The point is just to start to think about it and incorporate more fresh foods. With this tip, talking about produce, another thing to think about is just trying to eat more what's in season in your area. So that's something I do a lot. It's a really great way, one, just for the earth because you're eating what's in season, so less shipping of foods in, but it's also good for your body to help you to be more connected with nature. And same as the other tip, it's not like you can never eat something that's not in season. It's just trying to eat mostly things that are in season. Tip number 3 is to limit your intake of highly processed meats. So if you do eat meat, trying to limit the ones that are really processed. So this would be like your cold cuts, something like hot dogs, bacon, those are really processed meats. If you're gonna eat them, what I would highly suggest is definitely reading the ingredient list to see what's in them because they are gonna have some additives in them. So it's not like, so if you eat just a piece of chicken breast or steak, right, you kind of know what the ingredients is. It's chicken and it's beef, right? There's no additives. With these processed meats, there's more additives in them. So you really, if you're gonna consume them, you kind of want to be aware what else is added into that product. Something else to think about if you do consume meat and seafood is to think about where those foods are coming from. So what kind of farms that your meat was raised on, how were they treated, what were they fed? These are kinds of things that, one, are good for animal welfare, right? Like you've seen those terrible videos of farms where animals are kept in terrible conditions, and one, that's terrible for the animal, but two, that food is not going to be as nutritious for you either. So it's really a 2-part thing. So just thinking about or starting to try to be aware of where your meat is coming from, and if you could buy from a better source, then to do so. Tip number 4 is to think about your milk. So I don't want this to be a debate on drinking animal-based milk versus plant-based milk. So I'm just gonna give you tips for each of them. If you're drinking animal-based milk from cow or goat, whatever, same thing as with the meat. Really think about the conditions of the farm that you're getting your milk from, how they raise their animals, how they care for their animals, what they feed their animals. This is gonna, again, obviously impact the welfare of that animal, but also it will impact the nutrition of the milk that you're consuming. If you choose to do plant-based milks, what I want you to remember is to read the ingredients. So it's kind of the same as tip number 1, but we're just gonna go into it in more detail. So the plant-based milk, just your nut milks, your oat milks, a lot of times they will have additive ingredients in them. So you really want to read your ingredients label and choose one of those types of milks that don't have those additive ingredients. So for example, I do a lot of shopping at Whole Foods, which usually is like an easier place to shop in terms of like, for the most part, they're not gonna have the really bad ingredients in their food, but they're not perfect. So Whole Foods brand almond milk, like the 365 almond milk, does have additives in it. So you'll see like, it's like the gelin gum in there, and research, like if you look it up, it doesn't seem like there's research saying that that's necessarily a bad item for you to be consuming, but it is still an additive in food. So in my opinion, if you can have an almond milk without it, that would be better. I like a brand called Malk. I like their almond milk. So the ingredients in that almond milk are literally 3 things. It's almonds, water, and salt. That's it. They don't have any of those gums and additives. I can link it down below in the description if any of you are interested in that product. But yeah, just be aware, read your ingredients, and try to find a plant-based milk that has less of those additive ingredients. Your 5th tip is to drink more water and less sugary drinks. So honestly, just don't drink soda. Don't drink diet soda. Don't drink regular soda. It's literally just crap. And a lot of times I try to support doing things in moderation, but honestly with soda, I'm kind of like, no, just don't drink it. It's just not good for you. Drink some water instead. If you really love soda, I will tell you. So I drank soda probably like through high school, like probably up until I was like 18 or so, before I started like eating really healthy. And if I have tried soda, like say in the recent years, and it's disgusting to me. It tastes so sweet, it's so gross. So I feel like once you cut it out, you really kind of stop actually even liking it. So hopefully that will give you hope for that. Also think about like if you drink like some iced teas and stuff that are sweetened, really be conscious of what's in them, what the sugar content is, because a lot of times the sugar content can be really high, and maybe switch to a healthier option like unsweetened iced tea, or you could sweeten your iced tea yourself so that you know how much sweetener you're putting in it. But really the majority of your beverages really should be water. We need to be drinking water, right? So if you could choose water over having these other sugary drinks, I would definitely do so. Tip number 6 is to eat less processed desserts. So like your snack foods, like say like Oreos is a really good example of a processed dessert. And you could read the ingredients and you'll know that they're pretty processed, and you'll see the additives in there. But also like think about the shelf life on an Oreo, like how long it stays good for. And that kind of gives you a clue that it's a pretty processed food. It probably has additives in it to keep it fresh, so it's probably not going to be the healthiest choice for you. And this is true, so I'm going to go off topic here just for a moment, but this is true for like other things too. Like when you think about things that have like this really long shelf life, like what is in that product. So any like face products that I buy, like lotions or like face washes or whatever, serums, whatever, like I try to buy products that are pretty natural. And I have these products and I noticed, I was like, I bought them and then the expiration date was like 2 or 3 months from when I bought it. And I was like, what the hell? Like, am I going to be able to like use this as fast? Why is it expiring so fast? And then I'm like, oh, it's probably because it doesn't have all these added preservatives in it to keep it for a longer shelf life. So just something to think about. Getting back to the desserts, you could make your own. That's the best option because then you have control over what's going in it. I mean, I know that that's not always a realistic option. The second option is just to choose a product that maybe doesn't have that like lengthy ingredient list. So really, a really simple example is look at the ingredient list in a carton of like Ben & Jerry's. It's usually really long. There's a lot of weird stuff in it. But then there's other ice creams that have a way shorter list, right? It's like milk, it's sugar, like there's not much weird stuff going on in there. So that would be, right, there's your better choice. Instead of getting the Ben & Jerry's, you get the other brand that has the simpler list of ingredients. Something that I like as like a snack is I'll like make my own popcorn that I just pop on the stove. So that's really easy. Then you're not buying like a bag of popcorn that's more processed. So really like simple swaps, and it's just something to think about, right? It's not like, oh, you can never eat a processed dessert food, again, it's just trying to limit them and maybe think about ways you could start to maybe swap it out. The last tip is to eat less of your frozen pre-made meals. So if you can limit these, definitely do. Usually those frozen pre-made meals have a lot of sodium in them. So, they're not the best health-wise. So trying to limit your intake of these types of meals is definitely ideal. You're better off making a really simple meal. And remember, cooking doesn't always have to be complex. Like a lot of times we think that cooking takes so much time, so much effort, but it could be simple. Like, so for me, on a day where I don't have time, like a really simple meal that I'll make is I'll make some rice with some like veggies, like put in some carrots. I might even use my frozen peas in there. And I'll make just like bake some tofu on the side, and then maybe I'll put a little butter in it or a little soy sauce for a little flavor, and like that's my simple meal, like when I don't have a lot of time to cook, or if I just really have no food in the house, that's my simple meal. So that's a better option than eating a frozen meal. And I know it's not going to be possible all the time. I mean, trust me, if I'm not cooking, my husband is either probably going to order takeout or he's going to eat a frozen meal. So I know for all of you, it might not be possible, but trying to limit your intake of these frozen pre-made meals is going to be ideal in eating cleaner. So those are your tips, and I figured I would show you our new addition to the family, Miss Lola. She's a pretty girl, right? So yeah, those are your 7 tips to eat cleaner. Remember, it's not about being perfect. Just trying to incorporate some of these tips, starting to eat cleaner, starting to eat healthier. You're not going to be perfect all the time, and that's okay. So don't get too caught up in needing your diet to be absolutely clean and perfect. It's really not realistic. So you just try the best you can, and you start to get healthier over time, right? You start to incorporate these tips, and it gets easier, and they become part of your routine, and then you're eating healthier. So yeah. That's all from me for today. If you guys aren't subscribed, please subscribe. Please like this video, comment below. It really helps my channel. And if you do want to support me further, I do have a Patreon as well, so I'll link that in the description down below. But yeah, that's all from me for today. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye guys.